as long as we don't get above this level and stay above it, then I think you could still be looking at downside targets of 20,000 again, 15,700 even, maybe even lower.
In today's video, Chief Market Strategist of InTheMoneyStocks.com Gareth Soloway tells us all about his latest analysis of the charts as well as his predictions and price targets for Bitcoin. Soloway shares his opinion regarding high inflation rates, the stock market, the crypto market, and the Fed.
How can this be, Gareth, considering the numerous forecasts we've seen of a significant drop in the U.S. market and the economy?
So it has been a remarkable first half, and I still remember coming into the year, and I'm sure you do as well, that the projections from all the analysts said, oh, it's going to be a horrendous first half, but then the second half will be really good. And so it was almost like, if everyone was saying that, it had to be the opposite, and I think that's what we've got here. In terms of numbers, what we look at is if you look at the gains historically on the S&P and the NASDAQ, anything at the level we are at or at up to the 6-month mark or higher, the second half tends to be sideways more so. So up or down about 2% is the general consensus based on the numbers of what they're showing. So I do think the market has kind of predetermined a lot of the upside. I'm much more bearish than up or down 2% into year end based on a lot of factors, inclusive of M2 money supply starting to decline. So I think if you look at the charts, there's this tendency for the stock market to follow M2 money supply. And M2 money supply, the more it expands, the higher the stock market goes. Well, that was following perfectly up until about the last 8 months. M2 has started to decline, the stock market has gone up, creating almost like this jaw. And at some point, those jaws are going to snap closed, and the markets will play catch up. So I think for me, it's saying there was a lot of money on the sidelines. People were waiting. They heard this first half was going to be horrendous. Then it wasn't. Then the AI narrative hit, and everyone is now rushing in. So it's a momentum-driven first half to me.
Yeah, let's talk about this AI momentum. Is it justified for you, Gareth? I mean, let's look at, if we just, zoom in on some of the stocks, NVIDIA, for one, I mean, look at those numbers. What do you do with a stock like NVIDIA here?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those where, it wouldn't be something I would buy. I happen to be short NVIDIA at these levels because, again, to me, it's a lot of people hoping that they can really make a ton of money very quickly. But historically, when you have these kind of bubbles, and again, you could look back at the dot-coms, you can look back at the marijuana stocks, you can look at the solar stocks back when they first debuted. Even 3D printing was this huge pop in those stocks before they came back to earth. So I do think AI changes our lives over the next 5 to 10 years, but has NVIDIA and these other AI stocks factored in exponential revenue growth before or multiple years before it comes to fruition? So I think much like the dot-coms, everyone got very, very excited about it because it was going to change the world, and it did, but it just took a little bit longer, and you had to kind of filter out things for a while.
Is there a chart in the AI space that you think is going to be the silent creeper that people aren't looking at yet, but could be an outlier? Have you seen anything?
That is a good question. As of now, I don't have that, but I do think that the AI side is going to be going into things like travel booking, suggestions, like a lot of, like even something like I could see Google being kind of a sleeper where volatility wise it's not as crazy. It's had quite the run, but I think again it hasn't had the types of runs that we've seen in stocks like NVIDIA, right? So you're not back to all-time highs. So if you got pullbacks on this, like there's a great level on Google around 108. If you pull back to 108, I think it's actually an intriguing opportunity on something like Google.
Let's pull up Tesla, because I know you have a lot to say about Tesla. They just came out with their auto sales numbers. What do you do with Tesla, Gareth?
So this is a big thing for me because it literally in 2 a.m. I woke up with this epiphany, and it's kind of crazy how this stuff works. But so number one, looking at the auto sales, they beat the numbers by about 5%, The hype was intense, but remember, they cut prices by about 20%. So the question is, how much more can they cut their prices to generate these continual beats? I think I also saw today that Toyota had sold over 50,000 vehicles that were electric in the last month in the United States. So there's a lot of competition building. But my kicker, and this is what I think that investors are not paying attention to and mainstream media hasn't even come close to, is that if you look at the sales numbers for Tesla vehicles, over 50% of those vehicles were sold in China. All right, so think about that. Over 5 out of every 10 Teslas are being sold in China. Now, if we look at that number and we say, okay, what's the risk here? What if China says to Elon Musk, hey, if you don't make sure that your algorithms on Twitter perform better and treat news about China in a better light, we are going to say, hey, we are going to shut you down in China. So essentially we have, let's say they do that. Tesla's stock falls by 50% at least, if that were to happen. Now, that means Elon Musk's net worth would decline by about 1/3 or 33%. And so my aspect here is saying, okay, is there a national security threat with them selling so many vehicles in China? Is there a bigger story here that's not being talked about where China could have a large influence on Elon Musk in regards to Twitter and its power as a global speak space, right?
Wow.
So
wow.
I think that's something, and I'm surprised that the government hasn't brought that up. I mean, if China could literally cut almost $1 trillion company in half by shutting down, and that would affect his net worth by 1/3, I mean, you can't tell me that's not influential to a decision that he may make on an algorithm that he runs through Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, do you like what Elon's been doing with Twitter?
Oh, my goodness. I'm 50-50, right? I mean, the amount of fakes, and I know you have the same problem, the amount of fakes that are out there and they're just not being blocked it's scary, to be honest. There's got to be about 100 different Gareths now on Twitter, all of them trying to scam everyone else. And it's kind of gotten into like the Wild West to me a little bit. So I personally would like a little bit more control on Twitter. I don't know about you, but I think I'm liking it less and less because of that aspect.
What do you make of Meta trying to come after Twitter?
Yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, they're trying to look for new avenues. One thing I've noticed with myself, I'm spending a lot less time on Facebook more and more. So my Facebook feed it almost seems like it's 90%
boring
ads at this point.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's literally, I don't even know if I have any friends left at this point because I don't see any of their posts. Right? So to be honest, it's got to be Meta looking and saying, hey, we need to create something. There's an opening here, right? You have the Wild West on Twitter, which a lot of people really like, the total free speech, make up anything and you can post it there, doesn't matter, there's no fact checking. There's an opening for Meta to do a more positive, more restrictive version that maybe they can make some money off of. So I think that's the avenue. In regards to the fight, I think they should do it, but they should say, hey, we will do advertising for this and it all goes to charity. I literally think they could make for charity over $1 billion so easily. I think it would be a great thing for charity. And I think for charity, they would both be shown. It wouldn't even matter who wins or loses. It would just be something that was done for the right reasons to raise money for charity.
Let's talk Bitcoin. I know 30,000 was a crucial level for you. Now, crypto analytics firm Black-Scholes says Bitcoin, is no longer correlated to U.S. stocks. Do you agree with that statement? Does it matter?
I still think there is a decent correlation. I think slowly Bitcoin is losing that correlation, but I still think, again, if you saw a 10% drop in the NASDAQ, I wouldn't believe that Bitcoin wouldn't at least be dropping as well. So you're right about this 30 to 31,000 level continues to be dead on. And again, what's amazing is we could see here, and let me get rid of this one trend line here.
Please.
This same level goes all the way back to 2021 in the bull market. This low pivot here, these lows here with the mid-cycle dip, all the way over to this area. We hit it in, I think it was April 14th, we tagged it, and look at where we currently are. And we keep on trying to break above this level, but it keeps on failing. So for me, this continues to be the pivot point where it's either the low for the cycle is 100% in at that point, and we're headed probably higher with pullbacks, versus as long as we don't get above this level and stay above it, then I think you could still be looking at downside targets of 20,000 again, 15,700 even, maybe even lower.
BlackRock and their announcement that they applied for a spot ETF. Look, the likelihood of them getting a green light, how high is it for you, Gareth, at this point?
I think it's going to happen, right? I think that yeah, the SEC, right? If we look at it in the SEC, has basically labeled these securities. Bitcoin wasn't part of that, and I almost think it's like the SEC throwing a bone to the crypto markets. Like, okay, well, we've crushed you on everything else, your hopes and dreams for everything else. So here's one positive. Now, the big thing is does that mean that Bitcoin can't go back to the lows? And I would dare say that when the futures ETF came out in 2021, that was in October of 2021, and that actually marked the top of the crypto market. So if we do get a rally higher, I would just be very cautious once it gets released to see if that marks a short-term high.
So basically, you were saying it's not necessarily a game changer, because everyone thinks, okay, BlackRock ETF, that's going to just blow up the price. But on the space, you were saying not necessarily.
Yeah, I think again, people buy the rumors and the excitement, and the crypto market is driven by emotion. 99% of it is emotion driven, and I think that people again get overexcited about these things, and then when they really are out there, you just say, okay, well, there's gold ETFs, there's this ETFs, there's all these ETFs, and there's still the futures ETF, right? I mean, it's not like you can't play the BITO or the BITI ETF, which is long short Bitcoin. So again, there's options out there. Yes, it's a little bit better than the futures ETF because you don't have the losing value factor of the flip over of contracts, but it's not really a game changer to me overall.
Well, I mean, what do you make of the very bullish Bitcoin cheerleaders out there who are still saying, okay, this is it, 220,000 by July, by year end? I mean, as a player in the crypto space, when you hear that, what are you thinking?
So as a player in the crypto space and as a 20-plus year veteran of investing, to me it tells me that the bear market is probably not over. And I'll tell you why, is that when bear markets finally conclude, people are broken. The bulls just, they can't even muster bullishness anymore. And anyone who was living through the dot-coms or the 2009 financial crisis, you remember this. I mean, when we got to those lows in the financial crisis, at that point, people didn't even open up their portfolios. They didn't want to look. They didn't even want to talk about anything anymore. It was like their hopes and dreams had been dashed. And in crypto, that has not happened. And that's a concern to me in terms of telling me that there's still potentially more downside in crypto.